It is October 19, 2025, and this is episode 35, I believe, as far as I can remember. And I wanted to spend some time talking about the collaborative agreement. I don't want to spend too much time on it, but what I've come to understand is that it is a very, very involved agreement, and it's been very involved trying to maintain its relevance and to refresh it, to continue to refresh it. But lately, when you hear people talk about the collaborative agreement, they don't really specify exactly what that means and what it is. In fact, the other day, in I don't know, one of the previous podcasts, I think I suggested that the collaborative agreement is dead, and I'll get into why I reached that conclusion. But the other day on Brian Thomas's show, he was speaking with either Andre Hewing or Andrew Hewing. I think it's Andre, Brother Dre, I think is how he goes. Former police officer here in Cincinnati. And he was right on the money. He said that there's no definition of what the collaborative agreement is, and somebody needs to determine exactly what we're talking about. And what I've thought is that they keep talking about a collaborative agreement. There actually is no agreement where multiple parties have signed on the dotted line like they did with the original collaborative agreement. And just a quick background in case folks don't know, the collaborative agreement was the result of a lawsuit that was filed by the various civil rights groups in Cincinnati following the death of Timothy Thomas back in 2001, I believe. And there was a federal lawsuit. The city settled the suit, and out of that settlement came this agreement. And in order to effect the agreement, the city agreed to have a federal monitor appointed by the federal judge to monitor the progress of the agreement for 5 years. So that ran from sometime in 2002 to 2007 or 2008. And that was the end of the formal agreement. And since then, the city wanted to keep it going. They viewed it as successful, and they wanted to keep it going. And they've had various efforts at doing that. But if you look at the information available on the city's website, one of the things that was different in from 2008 to 2017 or 18 was that the Cincinnati Police Department was responsible for the collaborative agreement. For example, just a contrast, but in 2017. So this would have been 9 years after the formal agreement ended. The city wanted to refresh the agreement. I believe Harry Black was the city manager at the time. I'm not 100% sure. But they contracted. In fact, I don't think it was Harry Black at the time. At the time, it was Patrick Doheny he was the chief procurement officer. It was Harry Black was the city manager, I'm sorry. And so they wanted to contract with Saul Green to come in and see how they were doing. And Saul Green was the monitor for 5 years under the original agreement. The federal court or the federal judge appointed Saul Green. He was a former U.S. attorney out of Detroit, so obviously very qualified to monitor the agreement to begin with. And so the city concluded, probably rightly so, that he would be a good person to come in and see how they were doing. And they wanted Saul Green to look at 3 areas. One, and there were areas within the collaborative agreement, the original collaborative agreement. One was bias-free policing. The other was community. I always get this one wrong. Sorry. I got to look at my notes. Community problem oriented policing, which is pretty much like it sounds, community problem solving. And then the third one was mutually accountability evaluation plan. And what I saw of that was kind of a summary of what different groups within the city, what their relationship was to the collaborative agreement and what their status was and things like that. But it was very involved, and Mr. Green issued 3 separate documents, and I had to go to different parts of the city website to find them. They weren't all together in one spot. But he did issue those, and just like most reports or most evaluations, they have recommendations. So at that time, and I hope this isn't too boring for people, but it's very, very important. But at that time, there was a collaborative agreement sustainability manager that the city had hired to kind of marshal all of these things and to continue to make progress on the collaborative agreement. Well, once that Saul Green completed his work, then I guess Harry Black asked the collaborative agreement sustainability manager to write a plan on how to move forward. In fact, the name of the title of the memo, and by this time Patrick Duhaney was the city manager. This is August of 2019. He called it Update and Path Forward. So this was a plan. It's about 26 pages long, and it is this one. Sorry about that. But this is the plan, and it was delivered to the City Council on August 12, 2019, and very, very involved, a lot of things to do, a lot of priorities and steps and things like that. It's very well laid out. But you don't know from at least what's online what happened to it, what happened to this plan. And I think that would be important to find out. And it very much reminds me of the plans that the city council came up with after the 3 members of council were indicted for either soliciting bribes or taking bribes or whatever. There was a lot of work that was done on what the city needed to do to beef up the integrity of the city hall. But I don't think any of those recommendations were actually put in place, except for maybe one. Well, this seems kind of the same thing. You've got Saul Green's recommendations that the city manager at the time started to work on. You had the plan that the collaborative agreement sustainability manager came up with, 26 pages worth of things that needed to be done. And then you hit 2019, 2020, and that there's nothing beyond that online to say what the city has been doing. If you go to the police department's website, they have a page for this the collaborative agreement, and they include a number of documents on there, including what they call a timeline. But you can go back on that timeline to 2008, and just about every month or so, there's an update about what's happening in terms of bringing the collaborative agreement forward or continuing progress. An entry just about every month on that timeline. For example, when they got body-worn cameras and the different procedures that they had to put in place, that's all tracked on this timeline. Well, when you get to February 2020, that's it. That's the last entry online. So they're either not doing that anymore or they're not sharing it with the public. Either one is not a good situation, especially if you want to be transparent and have community involvement in what's happening with the police. And on another issue, and again, I mentioned this in a previous podcast, but I think it's worth repeating. If you look at the Management Advisory Council, or Management Advisory Group, I'm sorry, this was a group that was set up under the collaborative agreement to basically advise the city manager on police and community relations and things like that. And they would hold regular meetings. I don't know if they were monthly, but I think they were probably monthly. And they would post the minutes of those meetings online under the city manager's page under the collaborative agreement. And you would be able to track what was happening in the management advisory group. Well, neither of those are done anymore. And if you try to find things related to the collaborative agreement or the management advisory group, really the only thing online that it gets any information is the Citizens Advisory. What is it called? The Citizens Complaint Authority. I'm sorry, and this is the oversight group for the police, which was also created or established as a result of the collaborative agreement. But something happened in 2018, and I'm going to point to why I think that, and just a high level supposition or hypotheses. Something happened with that management advisory group, some type of power struggle or some type of politics. And here's what I am. Let me see if I can switch this around. Yeah, here it is. This is page 11 of that document. And if you look at the top, you may have to zoom in. It says the MAG was suspended mid-2018 due to operational concerns brought to the attention of the city manager by former members of the MAG, I guess they're saying, the former city manager that created the MAG, etc. Well, 2018 was when Saul Green was doing all of his analysis. So something happened to shut down the management advisory group, and it's just one of those things that having worked with bureaucracies or investigated bureaucracies, however you want to put it, those are things that stick out that you really want to get to the bottom of to see what that was all about. It may be perfectly innocent, harmless, no big deal, but it was big enough for him to put in this report, and it looks like there was trouble with the management advisory group back in 2018, and that may be why maybe the city's never recovered from that. Maybe that's why there's nothing more online about the collaborative agreement or the management advisory group. I do believe that it was reconstituted, but there's just not the same level or degree of public disclosure that's happening. So I really think that there is a real need for somebody, either the Public Safety and Governance Committee or somebody needs to take the issue and write down, document what exactly is the collaborative agreement these days. What does that mean? And I think it would be worthwhile to have the parties come to the table and sign a new agreement rather than sit there and talk about the collaborative this and the collaborative that, and nobody really knows exactly what you're talking about. A collaborative refresh should result in a document that everybody agrees to. I mean, that's the only way you can refresh an agreement is with an agreement. So I will probably make that point to the city council at some point. I don't know if I have time to do it before this week's meeting, but I think that's really what needs to be done. And again, I don't want to belabor the role of Iris Rowley here, but there are a couple of things. Number one, in her first contract with the city, one of her job was to document where we stand with the collaborative agreement. I don't know that that's ever been produced. Again, my records request, they came back and told me it was partial, so I can't say for sure that that report was never done. It's just not been produced for me. But that would be good to see. If Ms. Rowley put a status report together on the collaborative, that would be very, very important. You can't have the mayor standing up there talking about how important a collaborative agreement is if that hasn't been defined. And as far as I can tell, it has not been defined. The original collaborative agreement was like 23 years ago or something like that. That's an entire generation. So they really need to focus on what collaborative agreement really means. So I'm going to end it. I'm going to end it with this. So the most recent thing that I was able to find that had the name collaborative agreement on it was a slide presentation that was provided to the city. I think it was just the City Council Committee on Public Safety and Governance. I don't know if it was ever presented to the City Council itself, at least officially. But Ms. Rowley put together a slide deck concerning the Government Square Initiative. And I've written an op-ed about this. I've done a podcast about all this, but I had not seen this slide deck before. And one of the slides just really got my attention. I'm going to show it here, but you get a good sense of where Miss Rowley's coming from, and kind of where her priorities are, what she thinks is important, and what she thinks her role is in this whole community relationship issue. But basically, this is, I forget what. Let me see if I can find it. Here it is. This was one slide, and she speaks. Her slides are very casual, I guess, or her language is very casual. But anyway, she says, we knew if we all didn't join in, more problems could arise. She's basically selling the Government Square Initiative. Plus, the children needed to see me. I wanted to see them, to see us. I was also going to watch the police, which is really what I believe Iris Rowley is all about. She just wants to keep track of what the police is doing. But anyway, that's the last. That is actually the where did this go? There it is. That was actually the most recent. It was February. That was delivered in February of 24. But between 2020 and this slide deck here, there just is not a lot on the collaborative agreement in the city's online documents. There's a lot of information going back, to the 2015 to 2017 to 2020 period of time. A lot of studies. UC did some things. Saul Green did some things. The city itself did some things. And again, it's very much, in my book anyway, very similar to all the anti-corruption recommendations that the city council received that they ignored. You got to go back and gather up all the recommendations and see where they stand. I mean, that's how it's done. And you write a report about it. You either did these things or you didn't do these things. If you did these things, then what happened, or did you solve any problems? Things like that. You have to report out on what happened. So that's probably all I need to say. I just think that it is the case, as Andrew Ewing Andre Ewing said on Brian Thomas the other day. You need a new document, basically, and I hope somebody in City Hall figures that out, and we'll see if we can help them along in doing that. I did also, before I close out here, I did post something last night on my Facebook page I have reserved the name of the Cincinnati Oversight Project Incorporated. I've reserved that name with the state of Ohio, and the intent is to establish our own nonprofit focused on oversight of the city. And in addition to these types of things that I'm producing, the podcasts and all the rest of that, I'd like to create some kind of litigation capacity for a couple of reasons. One, it's very frustrating to try to get records out of the city, and we've got to get them in line somehow. We're gonna need some lawsuits to get them in line, which is the second point, is that if you look at any reforms that have happened in the city that have been, in any way productive or effective, you've got to take them to court. You probably have to take them to federal court. The two big ones that I've come across in my work, number one, of course, the collaborative agreement, but number two, the pension liability issue, that is also under a federal court order, and that federal court order is still in place. But the idea would be to build some kind of capacity, some kind of litigation capacity, and take the city to court when you have to. And it's just part of the, process, I guess. That's what the city listens to. And then, in addition to that, there's maybe some opportunities to, bring people on board to volunteer to help, because this is all volunteer work. Or as I like to tell people, since I'm on a federal pension, it's your federal tax dollars at work. But anyway, we'll keep you informed on the progress of the Cincinnati Oversight Project, but we're going to go forward with that.